John Hook's Newsmakers starts now.
Thanks for joining us on Newsmaker. 30 years ago, the Valley was in the grips of a serial killer. Two young women, Angela Brasso, 21, Melanie Burness, 17, killed 10 months apart while riding their bicycles along a canal near Metro Center. Both stabbed, mutilated, sexually assaulted. It wasn't until 20 years ago that detectives using familial DNA closed the circle on one suspect, Bryan Patrick Miller. He had evaded capture for 2 decades. When he went on trial, Miller's attorneys argued that mental illness put him in a dissociative state where he did not know what he was doing. Prosecutors said he was a sexual sadist who carefully planned these crimes. One of the people who maybe knew Bryan Miller best is my guest this week on Newsmaker. Keen Azariah has spent nearly 10 years trying to make sense of all this. The friend of his who ended up convicted of murder. He's written an extensive book on the subject called The Zombie in the Rear View. And Keen Azariah is my guest on Newsmaker. Great to see you.
Thanks, John.
You're a journalist, you're a writer. You end up in the middle of this, and I should say at the outset, the title, The Zombie in the Rear View, this was Bryan Miller's, it was his character that he did down at Comic-Con in cosplay. He had a car, he dressed the part. That's kind of the name, right?
Yeah, the title just refers to basically, in a symbolic way, of all the victims he had kind of re-emerging in his life's rearview mirror and coming back in the sense of, DNA and forensics and actually putting him in the position he's in now.
You met him in 2015. You had moved here from Cleveland.
Right. I moved here in 2007-ish.
Impressions of him when you met him?
Lonely, kind of sad, kind of very introverted. I met his daughter around the same time.
Would you have had any inkling that there was this kind of demonic part of this guy that was lurking in the background?
No, there's no way of doing that. You're in a what kind of, when I got to Phoenix, what kind of lured me into making friends? I'm slow at making friends by nature. So these costume groups that we both had a mutual interest in were great for making friends, but you do it in a slow way. So it's a requisite to be weird, and in these groups. Sorry, but it is. So nobody stands out in a sense. So it's a lot easier for someone who is maybe a little disturbed to.
Did you ever detect a violent side or a violent sexual side to him?
No. I think maybe a few females in his life have seen glimpses here and there, but no.
When you moved here, had you heard of the deaths of Angela Brasso and Melanie Burness?
I didn't. At the time, I was working at a dog groomer part-time and writing on the side for various print publications like Phoenix and Times publication, doing cartooning for them, and I had a graphic column in The Entertainer and stuff like that. And on the way to work, the Times would have stories. Shanna Hogan, who actually really helped me with this book before she passed away. She was like my training wheels for this, because I had no idea what I was doing. But every time you go, she did have a great true crime story at every bus stop, these papers. And that's where I learned of it. In about 2011, I think I read the story about Angela Brasso. And I was friends with Bryan at the time, but I didn't, there's no reason for me to remember that and put them together at the time.
You never talked to him about it? You never said, hey,
not that case in general. Yeah. I've talked to him about stuff like the Zodiac and stuff, but it was very brief. And
did he have an interest in that? Did he have an interest in serial killers?
I didn't think so at first, but apparently they're finding stuff in his house that, like books about Jack the Ripper and stuff like that, but he didn't make that known at all.
Okay, so did you know about these prior victims? When you met Bryan, he had stabbed a girl at the Paradise Valley Mall in 1990 and ended up in Adobe Mountain for that. Just stabbed her out of the blue in the back.
No, you could probably count on one hand how many people he might have alluded to in his life about what happened. And that's in the book. He kind of, through his jailhouse letters, he apologizes in a sense to me for not telling me sooner. Said that it's the way he prefers to let people know, but I didn't know a thing. If I had known, I would have had a little more of a arm's length kind of lunch with him.
And then he stabbed a girl in Everett, Washington in 2002.
Yeah.
So there was a history there. Do you believe that Angela Brasso and Melanie Bernis are his only victims?
My heart says no, and like I was saying, the whole avalanche of potential victims that emerge after his arrest makes it hard to put the brakes on that kind of thinking. So there's no way I would be surprised at all if there was.
So you never saw anything violent about Bryan? I mean, this is the actual kind of scary thing.
It is.
That people might not pick up that this is going on in the background of someone's life.
But he was the type of person, from all accounts, who would hold all that in. It would go off like a volcano sometimes, never in front of me, but he would apparently, according to his daughter, who actually expresses a lot in this book, she really unpacks a lot about him in this book.
And his former wife.
Yeah, and that he would actually, have these bouts of explosive anger, and
Interesting.
I've never seen it, but they said it's pretty bad.
Let me show a picture. This is picture number 1. This is you and Bryan at a restaurant. Do you remember where this was taken?
Yes.
You're there in the foreground
Yeah.
in the yellow.
I think that was Monsterland in Mesa before it closed down.
And that's Bryan on the far right.
Bryan, it's my girlfriend Ann, and one of our friends that Bryan was dating at the time.
Was he in character a lot when you guys would go out? Would he?
Yeah, because back then that's pretty much all we did. Before our last couple years, we actually did more day-to-day things that grew out of, away from costuming and all that parties, stuff. So we got to be good friends outside of the costume group.
There's another picture, number 2. This is you and Bryan at a birthday party. I don't know whose it was. Do you know? Do you remember?
Oh, that was Bryan's. I think it was his 40th or one of his last ones I went to before the arrest. It was at the Spoke and Wheel on Central.
I'm going to say something really stupid here. He does not look like a killer.
I don't know if it's the shiny tennis shoes or what.
Just kind of a guy you would not be alarmed by.
Oh no, absolutely. And you're right, that is the most frightening part.
In your book, you illustrate a lot of this, almost in a cartoon fashion.
Yeah.
Let me show you number 3, and tell me what this represents.
This is, everything in the cursive in the book is Bryan's words, Bryan's jailhouse letters, and it's illustrated through cartoon, because actually when Bryan was arrested, I was going to pitch a cartoon to the Times, and aesthetically these are the characters that were in that. It was meant to be a funny cartoon, obviously, but it's kind of hard to be funny when this whole world is like encaved around.
Yeah.
It's very hard. So these characters are basically from that, and they kind of morphed into this project.
Bryan Miller was arrested using genetic genealogy. Do you think now, looking back on it, in the rear view, so to speak, that he started to learn about some of these forensic techniques using familial genealogy, and they came up with the name Miller? This is what led police to re-question him. He had been looked at initially. Do you think he felt like, oh my God, they could actually get me for this, where he had escaped for 2 decades?
I think so. I think that whole generation, early 90s serial killers, were all sweating bullets at this time. I think they were, they were dropping off like flies left and right. The Grim Sleeper went in, I think, in 2010. And from then on, they just pop, with people like Colleen Fitzpatrick.
She's amazing.
Yeah.
I interviewed her on this show.
Oh yeah, we went to lunch. She's amazing. She makes my brain smoke. I can't even keep up with it.
It's incredible. Yeah. So if you don't know, you use a genetic profile into these databases that are public, 23andMe, Ancestry.com, and some of the alleles match, and you start to find out, okay, and in this case, they found the name Miller. That popped up.
Yeah, and it narrowed it down to a handful.
And so police, under a ruse, got him to go to, what was it?
A Chili's.
A Chili's restaurant, to try to get him to deliver some DNA, and what turned out on a drinking glass, a water glass. Yeah. How did they get him there? Do you remember what the?
I think they worked on his ego a little bit and asked him, if he would like this position of authority, as far as helping them catch criminals, which is pretty smart of them, actually, and to actually watch a building next to his place of work because there were thieves going in.
That's how they got him to the Applebee's.
Yeah, they were going to offer him a job. So
wow.
He took it.
He brought his daughter with him for that?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay, so he drinks from a glass, and it took a while. He wasn't delivering the goods. It took several.
Inhaled the burger, sipped the glass like wine. Yeah.
And then they collected the glass. They got a match 11 days later.
Yeah.
This is your guy. When you found out, what did you think?
Well, oh man, that's a funny day in my life. I was at work and I checked the internet, and I couldn't believe it. So I had to take a break. I was gutted. You know, it was a huge gut punch. So I went next door to my buddy Rodney, who I've known for years back then, and I told him the news. And lo and behold, this is what I mean. This book is an amazing example of, I don't know if you heard of the 6 degrees of separation.
Oh,
Well,
yeah.
you might be able to take that down to like 3 in this book.
No, that's right.
So Rodney was my other friend who didn't know Bryan. It was the guy who found Angela's remains in the canal. I didn't know that until the day Bryan was arrested. And he said, yeah, I was the one that the Fisher King came and knocked on my door. And I looked down there, and sure enough, it wasn't a joke. It was an actual human head.
Oh my God.
And he
Did you believe it when Bryan was arrested? When you started to learn more about it, did you say, yeah, this adds up?
You know, it's a weird phase you go through. You know, as a journalist, I was being pulled this way, and my heart was going the other way. And I was, you know, it's like if cops dig for remains, for example, you have relatives hoping that they find something. When some relatives hope they don't find something, and it's kind of how I went into it, digging. I was hoping maybe I won't, but hopefully I will. You know, maybe if
it's ultimate ambivalence in a way.
Yeah, it take a long time for it to taper off, that weird numbness that comes with an experience like that.
You attended the trial every day of the trial.
For about 8 months.
Did you have any interaction with him when he was in jail at Lower Buckeye?
We talked on the phone.
You did talk on the phone?
Oh yeah. Yeah, every now and then you would hear, you know, the phone ring, and it would say Lower Buckeye Jail, and he would just be calling to check in and whatnot. This was early on. He didn't have many people to talk to. I went to the courtrooms the whole time in the early stages to see his sessions.